Good morning, friends. This is your old girl, Melanie Rose, here to share your daily aspects. Today is Tuesday, January 25, 2022, and the sun is in Aquarius today, as is Mercury in retrograde. Woohoo! Let's see. Sun in Aquarius is a time when we sort of get into our head a little bit more. We back up, we take a look at the bigger picture, and we seek to lift all boats with our tide, right? We seek to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. There's a lot of communication, collaboration that goes on under this sun transit. And it's important to remember that when we are making plans, sometimes having initiative with your planning feels like momentum, but let's be sure to set our priorities before we take action. This is really more of a time for setting the priorities than for taking the action. And the moon is in Scorpio today. The moon is a third quarter moon, so this is the time of transition between reflecting on how things went for us over the past few weeks during our last culminative cycle with the full moon. And from here we transition into just letting things go. So we've sort of made the list in our minds, or perhaps actually a list of the things that we don't think are going to work for us moving forward. And so now's the time to just start pushing those things out. Release. And that's stuff and things, of course, because we all have a lot of stuff and things. But this also has to do with any thoughts, attitudes, or dispositions that we've had that are no longer serving us, and we can see that now. Okay, and moon in Scorpio, that goes very well with the releasing theme, because Scorpio just sort of asks you to get within yourself and let go of, release the deadwood, the stuff that you do, that you think, and that you feel that, again, no longer is working for you. So let's take a look at who the planets are on the page today, and then we'll get into some interpretation. The sun, who you are in your work life, your social life, and your civic life. And it also is like the person that people first get to know when they meet you. Followed by the moon, which is your inner life. This is more about your relationship with yourself, those things you think, feel, and know, but that may remain hidden because they are on the inside. And also who you are in your domestic or your home life. And then after the sun and moon comes Mercury. Mercury is your personal planet for the intellect, so especially your day-to-day thoughts, plans, and communications and the running around that you do. Then there's Venus, which is the planet about your relationship to those people and things that you value the most. In other words, love and money. How do you spend your love and money, and how do you receive it as well? And then Mars is really just on the page up here representing for Tuesday, but Mars is that personal sense of initiative. And I made this sort of dotted line across here because I want to make a differentiation here for you all between what are your personal planets and what are what they call transpersonal planets, or more like social planets, or the bigger outer planets that govern more of the groups of people instead of the individual. So Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, these are your personal planets, and those are the ones that have the biggest impact on how you behave, how you feel, and all of that stuff. Jupiter is on the page today. Jupiter represents growth, and it's sort of like the transpersonal planet that brings you out of the personal and out into the world. So it's about education and business and the kind of growth that brings you out to interface with the world. Saturn is about those structures and networks that we rely on for support and our responsibility to maintain them. Uranus comes around and asks us to do things a little bit differently, and so it brings about some change. Neptune's not on the page today, but Neptune is one of those outer planets too. And Pluto is the farthest out there. Pluto brings about transformation through the high and low lows of our experiences, the deaths and rebirths. We have a number of aspect energies on the page today. I'm just going to go through this. The page is divided into two columns, one for each of our luminaries. The moon sheds light on our inner lives, our emotional, intuitive self, and who we are in our home space. And these aspects are really brief. They're all about 2 hours each, and they have more of an impact on our feelings and emotions and subtle energies that we might notice. So they're all on one side of the page. The sun sheds light on our outer life, and I address the sun's aspects and all the other planets' aspects on this side because they take longer than the lunar aspects and they have more to do with how we behave out in the world. And we start with the sun today. First, in the ongoing column, we have Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. Venus retrograde is with us for just a few more days, so if you want to picture it, Venus on its trip around the sun, and we're looking at it on its orbit sort of from the side. So when it's about to turn and go the other direction, of course, that's just an illusion that we see from our perspective. But first, what it will do is it will appear to stop. It'll slow down and then stop, and then it will start moving back in the other direction. So it's been going retrograde, it's been going backward according to our perspective, and now it's going to slow down and stop. And if you imagine that, it might create some sort of ripples in the field and the flow as it does that, and then it will start to go direct again. So we've been through a lot with Venus retrograde over the past several weeks, and those commitments have come under review, and we've really asked ourselves the questions about our romances, our friendships, our relationships, our finances, our our relationship to our work and our workplaces. And what it's come down to is we have to be true to ourselves, right? We have to be true to our own heart. And sometimes being true to yourself may require you to be able to put up a good defense. So, we don't make the choices that we make during retrograde. Hopefully we don't make them without any forethought. So we know why we do things, and we should be, sometimes we're going to have to be ready to, let people know why we do things. Be ready to stand your ground. Mercury is in retrograde through the 3rd. And the message I got when I was reflecting on Mercury retrograde, right, it was sometimes it's better, to say nothing. Maybe sometimes silence speaks the loudest, but also sometimes, my input is just not really required. And if nobody's requiring my input, and if nobody's really asking for it, then perhaps it's better not to say anything at all. So that's your Mercury retrograde wisdom for the day. I hope it's going all right for you all. Today at 7:41 Central Standard Time, friends, the sun goes square with the moon. Now, this is the aspect that indicates the halfway point between the full moon and the new moon. So it's the aspect that indicates that half moon figure that you're going to see in the sky. This is a 3rd quarter moon. Sun in a square position with the moon is like the outer life and the inner life sort of having some static and challenges between them. So we may feel a little bit challenged by ourselves. We may be dealing with some challenging things, or something might come out in our outer life that makes things challenging in our inner life, etc. So this might bring up some anxiety and dread for some people. It's pretty anxious time out there in general. I would like to advise you just to remain dedicated to positive outcomes. We are in the phase where we start to let go of some things and brush some things out of our lives. So that doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can really be a positive thing to lighten your load a little bit. And then this evening, what time is that? 9:05 in the evening. Mercury is so retrograde. It was in Aquarius, and now it has backed its way into Capricorn. So normally when we change from one sign to another, we go forward through the signs. And in this case, we've gone backwards, and that's what retrograde planets will do sometimes. So Mercury is backed up into Capricorn. This brings us back into a kind of a serious, no-nonsense vibration. But we have to, again, remember not to be rigid in our thinking. I think we talked about this yesterday or the day before with Mars going into Capricorn. Again, the important thing was to, not be too rigid in our desire to get the things done. Okay, and that's the warning here too. Don't be rigid in your desire to have all the good ideas and make the plans and get the things done. And remember that planning again is not the same thing as planning is not the same thing as acting, right? So we're planning now. Okay, as for the moon side of the page at 8:01 in the morning, the moon makes a trine with Jupiter. Moon and Jupiter in aspect together nearly always represents a good time, feeling of good fortune, being lucky, wanting to be generous, feeling expansive and very giving and open. And the trine vibration says, go for it. Like, this is harmonious accord. This is the time for synchronicity and coincidences. This is a time when things should be functioning ideally. So whatever it is that you're feeling lucky about, especially when it relates to the heart and home, go ahead and, pursue it. Make that phone call or buy that gift or whatever it is that you were thinking about doing in that expansive, generous sense. Then at 4:52 in the afternoon, the moon makes an opposition to Uranus, and then less than an hour later, it makes a sextile with Venus at 5:41. So these can be taken together or separately. They definitely overlap one another. Moon in aspect with Uranus always brings about a potential for a change of heart or changes to be made in the home. And, we can always have a change of heart. I think it can be a blessing to always be open to having a change of heart about something. If you want to make any changes in your actual home space, I would just advise that you communicate with your partners in your home space about those changes. And then moon in sextile with Venus, is generally a really good vibe. Moon in aspect with Venus just has this feeling really receptive and open. With Venus in retrograde, that might be a more conservative feeling of being receptive and open. But there's a potential here if you feel some passion come into a situation, some relationship that piques your interest and your drive, to channel those passions into energy and initiative, because sextile here is cooperative, and cooperation makes things happen. Okay, and then at 9:42, the moon makes a square with Saturn. Moon in aspect with Saturn has us usually feeling some sort of way about the structures and the networks that we rely on for support. In a square position, in a square energy there, it might be like a feeling of restriction, of feeling like there are too many rules getting in the way, or just feeling kind of stuck or trapped at home or in our heart. So, Saturn is a very in charge sort of vibration. It's the one that says, okay, this is how we're going to do it. You go over here, you go over here, you go over here. We're going to make this play. And then we go ahead and do it and we make the play. So Saturn is in charge of Aquarius and Saturn is in charge of Capricorn. And we've just got a really heavily Capricorn influenced sky weather right now. So I would say, sometimes being in charge is no fun. And sometimes, being in charge, being the boss, even of just ourselves, we can feel a little bit restricted and we can possibly be desiring to break free a little bit. But this is a 2-hour aspect. So, bear that in mind. Yes. And coming up on Friday, Mercury, still in retrograde, is going to make a conjunct with Pluto. Mercury retrograde went conjunct with the Sun, and then it did its perihelion, I believe, yesterday. Now it's making a conjunct with Pluto. It's like it's hitting all the stops on its world tour of how to make Mercury retrograde as intense as possible. So we're going to come up on another one of those this Friday. It will go conjunct with Pluto, and that will be like the intensification of our thoughts and communications around like the intensification of our experiences as well. Woohoo. And then on Saturday, Venus goes direct. Finally, some sweet relief. A few days later, Mercury will go direct. Next Tuesday, we have a new moon in Aquarius. Aquarius. Oh, yeah. And then at the end of the month, the 31st through the 2nd of February, Imbolc is the holiday that sits halfway between winter solstice and spring equinox. So it's that point where the sun starts rising a little bit earlier, the days start to get longer, and it might still seem really cold outside for a while because it's still technically winter, but it's the second half of winter, not the first half of winter. So yay, hooray for the coming of the spring. We can sing the Here Comes the Sun song real soon. Okay, so that is it for the aspects today. If you have any questions or comments, I really would appreciate it if you put one in the comments section below. I check them every day and I would be happy to respond. And if you've gotten this far, please go ahead and give me a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share this video with somebody you think it will resonate for whatever reason. I appreciate all of that. And I'm in a habit now of throwing down a tarot card at this point in the, what is this called? A broadcast, an episode, a show? Anyway, there is a tarot card sitting on the side here. This tarot card represents the first 1/3 of the Aquarian sun transit. So it'll be up there for about 10 days, really just for about 4 more days. Just to see us through the end of Venus retrograde, actually. So 5 of Swords there is sort of be careful how you use your words. Be careful about the fights that you pick, even if you think you can win. That's not always, the best position to be in. So that's what that one says, at least to me. And now, considering that the sun is in Aquarius, as is Mercury until about 9 o'clock this evening, and the moon is a 3rd quarter in Scorpio, which is going to lead us to a new moon in Aquarius next week. And considering that we have some positive and some balanced energies on the moon side here, and some challenging energies on the sun side of the page. Let's put a card down. 10 of Swords. I love this card. It says, everything is fine. So Swords is another air sign card. That's Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. And so swords aren't literal swords. They're the thoughts and words that people use and the plans people make. And occasionally it can feel like all of the thoughts and words and plans are against you, or even maybe all the thoughts, words, and plans you make for yourself are against you. In any case, sometimes it feels better just to sort of lie down and feel the pain. 10 of Swords does represent the end of a cycle. So it could be that, something is coming to a close that was unpleasant anyway, or was ending in an unpleasant way. The future is wide open, folks. That's what I'll have to say about that. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Melanie Rose, and I will see you all back here tomorrow for more daily aspects.